Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to SCM Pro Forum's roundtable discussion on building a connected, intelligent, and resilient logistics network. I would like to thank firstly all our speakers for sparing time and joining us today for the discussion. I would also like to thank all attendees for sparing time and coming to hear the discussion. Certain ground rules for all the attendees. This platform is on listen-only mode, and on the right-hand side of the control panel, you have a question tab wherein you can keep typing and sending us your questions, which will be answered post the discussion is over. So thank you and welcome you all. As an institute, we are happy to announce a new website, www.iscmindia.in, and we would request you all to kindly have a glance over it, where you can find our entire ISCM ecosystem there in one place, from certification courses to our demand planning academy and even our knowledge portal. And we are happy to have you as a community member too. So do visit our website. For saying, we have right now downloaded and kept in the Hangout section details of two of our upcoming certification programs in the domain of demand planning and supply chain. You can check out and download them. Thank you very much. A big thank you to our presenting partner for today, Infor, for their support to the roundtable. Infor is a global leader in business cloud software product for companies in India's specific markets. Infor supply chain management solutions help connecting companies to their supply chain partners and digitally transforming processes from planning to delivery, both within and outside the enterprise. Thank you, Infor, for your support to the roundtable. Let me go ahead and introduce and invite on stage our speakers for today. I would request all the speakers, as I call up you on stage, kindly switch on your audio and video and join us. We have with us APR Group Director at Varuna, Adendu Jain, Director Depot and CFS Business at Merckx, Firoz, CSO at Delivery, Binu George, Head of Business Consulting at Infor India, Kapil Mahajan, Group CIO at Safe Express Private Limited, CV Kumar, CEO at CCI Logistics India, Sachin Bhanushali, Director and CEO at Gateway Rail Freight Limited, Atul Anand, Director Solutions Operation Excellence at FM Logistics, Ryan Oliver, Vice President Contract Logistics at Agility, Basant Tanwar, Head Contract Logistics at BP World, Dr. Rakesh Singh, Chairman, Institute of Supply Chain Management. Thank you all for sparing time and being with us today. I would request Dr. Singh to kindly lead the discussion ahead. Thank you, gentlemen.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a roundtable discussion on building a connected, intelligent, and resilient logistics network. We know integrated supply chain management has gained a new importance post-pandemic, and for the first time, even as an academic, I've been seeing that there has been so much of reference to supply chain in last 7-8 months, which I have never seen it in my academic and non-academic career of 30 years. What I really see is that organizations have started to realize that today supply chain is not just logistics. It's an ecosystem where logistics is a part of the ecosystem. If you remember, and I see some of the friends here whom I've discussed things earlier, just as the lockdown came in with a lot of chaos, regulatory issues and other issues, when we started bouncing back in terms of even essential services, one of the major things which happens across the the lockdown period and post-lockdown too is that how do we read this overall supply chain? For instance, what happened to the category consumptions? How did the demand change? What happened to the channels? Which channel really became important? And given this, we had a lot more to do in the sense that how do we secure our transportation? How do you secure our warehouses? How do we secure our supplier? And given a McKinsey report says that the kind of disruptions that we saw across the supply chain can be mapped very beautifully. Largest disruptions that came up in the early phases was material shortages. Then it was factory closures. Then it was worker availability, and then the planning. And I think if you really look at planning, planning has been encompassing almost the whole end-to-end supply chain. Given this context, one of the things that I've seen is that in terms of logistics, in terms of securing logistics, there was a lot of problems post pandemic. And one of a CCO of a prominent 3PL company who happens to be a student told me that largely those guys who were able to secure this transportation, obviously workers and drivers, were one who had a very strong collaboration. They had a long-term contract, they cared for each other, they treated them as equals, 3PLs as equal, and they were able to secure transportation as well as logistics, as well as warehousing, because warehousing moved closer to the cities where there was containment zones, where the quarantine and other things. And I think Firoz would agree that there was a lot of challenges that everybody faced to be close to these zones in order to meet the challenges of delivery and last mile delivery. And this became a real challenge to the whole thing. How do you secure warehouses? How do you secure your logistics? How do you secure your materials? How do you secure your factory workers and entire supply chain? In this context, we thought that we need to look at this larger function of logistics and warehousing, which sits in the supply chain in a beautiful way. In fact, there are a lot of write-up which says that it's just when we talk about logistics, we talk about outbound only. I'm just talking about inbound. And look at the inbound scenario today. Sachin would agree that today we are not getting the containers, the right kind of containers. Why? The imports have declined. And because of there is a huge congestion in ICDs and CFS are not able to service properly, and the ports are not able to actually provide that particular facilities for oncoming ship to come in. There is a huge shortage of ships, and hence India faces not only shortage of ship of feet, and all those who are coming to these airports are not even coming to the ports. They are just boycotting India because they don't see a point in going there. And as imports in India have declined for some reason, all of us know, there's no supply from containers or ships from China, and hence there is a very difficult situation that pharma, chemicals, automotives, and other. In fact, one friend from automotive told me that they have a long-term contract with Merck and others, and hence they are able to actually, meet their materials supplies in time. But I think there is a large-scale disruption that has happened in this. How do you really identify these disruptions? How do you really plan for these disruptions? How do you actually create a supply chain of tomorrow? Because I read another very interesting article, as I come from a supply chain background. What I've seen is that will transportation and logistics get subsumed in the larger supply chain? Because till now, we have been seeing from a very functional, silos. And from a functional viewpoint, we have never seen it as an end-to-end. Even now, when I talk end-to-end, if I talk to a supply chain head who is on the outbound, this thing, you will say from the factory to the last mile and from factory to the last tire or supplier. I think there is still a disconnect where logistics does not sit in the supply chain, and logistics and warehousing are very tactical function that happens. But then there is a shift. And the shift is enormous because in this pandemic, we have realized that there has to be a strategic shift towards a supply chain oriented distribution and logistics, and they need to be redefined. And redefining them would mean large amount of elements of these two functions within supply chain, which needs to be identified, married to supply chain, and also made capable of the marriage. So in that sense, what we thought was that a roundtable would be an important thing to happen, and roundtable will give us a good perception about what happened. So let me start with the very first. It's not a question; it's a discussion point. Anyone can come in, but I will throw it to somebody in the debate. Anyone has a suggestion, anyone wants to come in and talk about it, you are free to add in a very polite manner. And let's be not, like one of those TV debates where we bounce on each other. We go one by one in the whole process. So
I'm sure we are not on the Republic channel.
Dr. Singh, your voice is gone.
No, I've come back.
Yeah,
I think. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now
Yes,
yes.
we can.
So what were the disruption during pandemic and the whole lockdown period and the unlockdown period, where we still have the incidence of pandemic hovering around us? At least in Bombay it's going down, Delhi is going up, whole of the Europe is seeing a second wave, and hence there's an US election that may make pandemic even more black swan through the geopolitical dynamics that's going to emerge now. So I think all these, what are the critical learnings for warehousing and logistics? So I'll start with Firoz.
Hi, you can hear me well?
Yeah.
Basically, thank you. I'm Firoz from Delivery. We are primarily a company. We still consider ourselves a startup. We have we serve e-commerce and bulk logistics in about 18,000 pin codes, span India, 45,000 people working, 6,000 trucks. So as you all know, once the pandemic struck, obviously everything went down. And after that, it was a fight to take the U curve to the V curve. Now, why I'll talk about the U curve and the V curve, because that's what differentiates the ordinary from the people who did work and try to make the logistic wheel moving. Basically, there were some companies which fell into the L curve, which means the moment the COVID was announced, they fell into the pit and they didn't know what hit them, and nothing moved for a couple of months. So that's probably the category 1 of the companies. There's a category 2 of the companies, which is which is a U curve. So basically they hit the pit, but then they made strategies and they were able to come out of it within a short possible time. What we basically embarked on right from the day it was announced that we should reach the V curve, and at the speed with which it has fallen, we should be able to get it back the sooner the possible. And how can we possibly sharpen this V curve? So that was our goal. We took various types of innovations, whether it's in the warehouse, whether it's on the products, whether it's how we deliver and collect our bills and BTs, and as far as the trucks goes. The hygiene factor was very critical as far as contactless is concerned. Contactless was something which we emphasized at every possible process of our business, whether it is in the warehouse using the sanitizers, using the toilet soaps, using the water drinking stations. That's how we discovered that almost 100 people of ours got infected in a warehouse because the water drinking station was infected. So that's how one has to look at it from each and every perspective and make improvements. Of course, digital payments was the mantra, because that was the time when cash, everybody wanted to get out of it. But why we were able to achieve it was because we had this logistics complete designing in-house. So the complete software which is available, it was designed in-house. So the moment a lockdown is announced, we had to make you have to make various changes, whether it is related to the cities you are serving, the products you are serving, the trucks which are moving, and the people who are trying to come back or who have gone to various places. So because of being able to have an in-house logistics design and a complete in-house software, we were then able to divide each and every category of the issues which were coming in, redesign, reroute, remove people, things like that. And that's how we were able to sort of restart. Within almost 5 days of the lockdown, we were back to almost like 18,000 pin codes. So that's, of course, I mean, for a limited item, because initially it was essentials only. Then from essentials, it moved to essentials and and part non-essentials and thereafter. So that's where I would say is the efforts. Thank you very much, Dr. Rakesh, for having invited me for this panel. I will be glad to share various other innovations which we
We'll
worked
come back
upon.
to you.
Thank you so much.
We'll come back to you, Firoz. Rayon, you have seen the pandemic. You also operate in ocean, sea freight, and even locally. What do you think are the major factors during the pandemic which are of interest in terms of competitive strategy for organizations like 3PL, as well as what is the future scenario that you see unfolding?
Well, I think when with this pandemic struck, I mean, obviously everybody was taken without warning, and this was obviously a long-term effect as far as this pandemic is concerned. The most important thing I think for all companies is to have a very robust, business contingency plan. I think that is what will help all companies to kind of sail through this, and this is what we had done. Apart from just a business continuity plan, make sure that you're able to bounce back in the fastest or shortest period of time. And yes, I agree with Firoz when we talk about a V curve, because that is what happens when you hit rock bottom. I mean, how fast you're able to climb the ladder. So what companies did and what we did per se is, first of all, we made sure that your entire IT network is able to sustain, in terms of whether you have a data backup available, whether you're able to provide systems for people from work from home, because that's become the norm. And unless you are properly networked and people were able to work from home with the shortest period of time, I think we were able to reduce the downtime to hardly a few days, where people were actually kind of still finding themselves. So the IT setup, a robust setup, making people kind of getting them online at the fastest possible. And true, from a warehouse perspective, obviously, I mean, we are in the line of work where we cannot afford to have warehouse shutout, right? So yes, when it came to essentials, we were able to I think in the possibly the first week of April, lockdown went off, I think last week, 22nd, 23rd of March. First week of April, we were already operational, meeting all the essential kind of requirements. And the key takeaway here would be also to make sure that your relationships with your backend service providers is strong. I mean, I could go in length to talk about, how do you build a strong relationship, but I don't think that's the forum for this. So maybe it'll come up in another topic. So apart from your IT infrastructure, make sure that you have a very strong network, vendor management process to make sure that they are able to kind of bounce back into your supply chain, and that is what helped us, meet the customer demand in the shortest possible time. Going forward, coming to your question, Doctor, yes, going forward, what is really going to happen is, I think, work from home will continue for some more time, because the idea would be is to not to expose your team to any more risk. I think the administration is already under a lot of pressure, trying to contain the pandemic and trying to contain the massive population that we have. So rather than put pressure on the administration, it is going to be a work from home culture for quite some time to go. We are urging our staff, to make sure that people are online, they're able to connect. So IT connectivity, your broadband, all those things are in place. And part of the management is constantly be in touch with the staff to make sure that they are comfortable working from home, because not everybody is comfortable in this kind of environment, but I think that's the way it is. So going forward, what is really going to be the turnaround to make sure that we are able to sustain is possibly the deliveries. And because today customers have gone into the a larger part of customers have gone now into the e-commerce environment. Most of us who are part of old school still believed in the touch, feel, and buy. But I think because of this pandemic, everybody's forced to sit back and click of a button. Now you've started getting into the ease and convenience of ordering from home, which means players like us, we are uh, making sure that we are able to deliver freshness of product, because you can't afford to kind of say that, oh, because of the pandemic, because of X reasons, there is no freshness and we are not going to manage FIFO. So you have to make sure all the things that you were doing in the past continue to be there, and also you're going to make sure that deliveries happen right up to the customer's door. So that is, I think, going to be the way forward.
Basant, DP World operates globally, and I think it has connected India and the largest destination for export and import in terms of the Middle East and North Africa. What are your take on the logistics disruption that took place, and how do you see the scenario unfolding in terms of that?
So, Dr. Rakesh, I think because of the company guidelines, I will not be able to comment on DP World's business model. But then recently, I was talking to most of my customers related to this post-COVID scenario, and as you correctly mentioned, that this COVID scenario has not only touched the demand factor of it, but then supply also has been somehow got impacted. So recently, when I was talking to one of my customers, they were mentioning very clearly that because of the lean practices or just-in-time practices, there was a time post-COVID that they were unable to get the required inventory in place. And that's how it got impacted their order demands also, because there were a lot of wild order demands which were coming to them, but then they were unable to fulfill those demands because of their supply got impacted. And that is the reason now they are thinking about having more inventory in hand, right? So that is one thing. Another was the scalable process and the picking strategy they are planning to revise, because while some warehouses were overwhelmed with the order and facing labor and inventory shortages, some warehouses on the other hand observed order dry up, which left them with abundance of inventory. And so this wild fluctuation in order demands are very difficult for most of the warehouse to handle. Now, in the wake of this COVID, warehouse will definitely look to implement scalable process to manage unpredictable demand using a combination of the material handling technology and software solutions. So warehouse will definitely try and deploy flexible order picking strategy, allowing them to easily handle peaks. Now, if I mean, because all of us are there in the supply chain sector, we also have observed that during this peak COVID scenario, there are a lot of migrants labor which moved to their hometowns, and that actually gave a big hit on the picking and the order supplies. So now this is the time when these customers are thinking about how to handle these kind of labor shortages, so as to have a flexible picking strategies. So this is the thing. Yeah.
Thank you, Basant, for bringing those points up. Let me go to Adendu. Jan, Adendu, what are the key areas for improvement for logistics? If I can break it into warehousing and transportation, what are the areas where technology can make a difference to warehousing? But I think we'll keep the technology bit a little later. We will look at the first aspect of it as to what are the key improvements in logistics that's needed. I think Basant touched a little about the human angle, the migrant labor, availability of labor, enforcing strict norms for the social distancing, and so forth. What do you think are the critical areas in logistics that needs to be taken care of while we move towards defining warehousing and logistics for the new normal?
Thanks, Rakesh ji. First of all, my apologies to all the panelists. I got slightly delayed due to some technical glitch, but thanks. I have been here and join the discussion now. So to start with, like you said, I would kind of break it into, let's start with the transport part or the wheels part of it first. And on the wheels part of it, I would say that when we look at things, then we can actually divide it into three key parts. One is the actual flow or the physical flow of the cargo. The second is to do with the documentation of the cargo. And third is to do with the information flow about the cargo. And when we look at it, I would say that the physical movement of the cargo initially came to a complete standstill, but this standstill actually, with all the local heroism, the effort and the entrepreneurial capabilities and all that, had started to move. But then the second challenge was about the documentation. Whatever said and done, as an industry and as a business, we are still highly dependent on the physical flow of the documents. So cargo can flow, but unless documents flow, specifically on the international trade side of it, whether it is air or sea or any other mode, that is something which completely came to a standstill, and companies, businesses, industry realized that, oh, I have got my container, I have got my cargo, but I can't clear it because I don't have documents. Documents are either stuck at some office or they are just in the transit and all of that. So I think that's one thing which clearly came out and saw as a clear gap. The third one was about the information flow. And I think a lot of times what we realized is that we have been negotiating as users of the transportation. We end up negotiating on the per ton, per TU, per unit cost. But have we really given that much of an stress to the visibility part of it, to see whether the partner with whom we are working has got all the requirements? To sum it up, I would say the physical part of it kind of bounced back quite early, but clearly the gap is on the digitization part, on the documentation, and that is something I would say that government has also taken up a lot of initiatives, and as an industry we need to really move forward on that. That may also mean certain uniform standard practices, so that as a consumer of the services, they may not have to adapt to a different documentation or different way of doing things depending on with whom they are working. So that's clearly the one. The second part of it is to do with the information flow. I think that is a absolute must. That is absolute must. We have seen cases whereby customers have not been even aware of that they are cargo boxes, trucks which are actually lined up and which ended up into huge cost for them. Sometimes the lack of visibility meant the loss of business and all of that. So definitely on the transportation side, it has to be augmented with a clear work on the real-time visibility, with opportunity to increase both way laden trips. That another thing which it would help as an opportunity to come and eliminate the waste in the process. On the documentation side, definitely the digitization of the document. While there is a lot which is happening on the global level, I think as an industry and as a trade in India, we also need to move forward. I would say government has taken few steps and there are more to be taken. The last one on the transportation side I would like to touch upon is on the social and financial security and maybe better working conditions for drivers. We all saw the massive exodus of the drivers. Everybody had would have some way or another an emotional feeling and attachment to that, oh, what a condition they have been living into. But when we come back to work and as things are getting normal, I think as an industry, as the leaders in the industry, we all also need to think that what is that can be done to the betterment of the conditions. Because mind us, if we don't do something about it, then few years down the line, this would be one area where there would be a clear gap in terms of the requirement of the drivers and the what would be the availability. So I think that's one also as an industry, as logistics, we need to work upon to see what is that can be done to provide the social and financial security and provide better working conditions for the drivers. A lot of organizations have already started to work on it, but I think there needs to be a lot more work done.
Thank
The
you.
last one, please.
Go ahead.
See, the last one which I will also touch is that somewhere on the transportation side, just because the way it has been, a lot of our transportation continues to move on both rail and road. But somewhere when you look at the right flows, I think the long haul distance of the transportation should be something which is better managed on the rail, and maybe the last mile and the shorter distance of the transportation is better managed on the road. And we could clearly see that happening in our industry, that this is way which could be the future. And I think there needs to be a more clearer policies and effort to see what is that can be done to bring back the long haul transportation on rail and short haul transportation on the road. But that is my take on the transportation. You were saying something.
All right, I think I'll come back to you, Adendu, again. Let me go back to the next panelist. And I think thank you for bringing those points of, the choice of the mode when you start defining your logistics and supply chain strategy, and also streamlining and subsuming your transportation in the supply chain. I have also Jasdeep Sethi from TCI. He cannot be seen for some technical reason. I think he's on his mobile. Jasdeep, welcome. Can you hear me? Yeah, Jasdeep. I think he still has an issue, but I think we also have APR from Varuna Transportation. Yeah, APR, are you there?
Hey, Dr.
Yeah,
Singh.
right.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening. So I quickly, APR, to induct you into the debate, and as you have to leave early, what I thought was your views on what are the critical element of logistics and warehousing that needs to be, emphasized upon in order to make the overall supply chain competitive for any firm, and also for a country as a whole.
So thanks, Dr. Singh. So I think for so many years of being in the industry and being fortunate and blessed enough to be on both the sides, including the third element, which is consulting, right? Dr. Singh, what I've realized with all this experience is that I had to unlearn a lot. As I kept moving from one section to the other, and most importantly, what is required in warehousing, transportation, or the entire supply chain to become better is connectedness. And this may sound some sort of soft skill here, but trust me, connectedness is very important. There's absolutely no connectedness amongst the two. So warehousing works in isolation, transportation works in isolation, planning works in tandem with sales, right? But again in isolation, and then so planning expects warehousing to do what is required. Similarly, transportation to do what is required. I think one bit of exercise that happened over a period of years was SNOP planning, right? Sales and operations planning. But it is not very widely used. So connectedness is a massive issue. So if you ask any of my logistician friends over here, they would probably agree and echo with my thoughts. Connectedness is a massive issue. Transparency, we all like talking about.
Right. I think we are losing your audio as you are traveling, but I think you thought about a very important. Yeah, but I'll call you back a little later when you are. You can contribute in the second phase. I think you brought about a very important aspect of supply chain planning. Can I be heard? Hello.
Yes, Dr. Rakesh.
Can I be heard?
Yes, good.
Okay. So you brought about a very significant part of any supply chain processes, whether it's a user organization or a service organization. We are quite disconnected from each other, and hence, largely in the absence of visibility, agility, and efficiency goes for a toss, and the larger supply chain planning in terms of granularity goes for a toss. So I think, and we operate in silos in logistics. We operate in silos in terms of our planning, in terms of sourcing, and what we have seen is that, as someone rightly said, I think it was Ryan was talking about vendors in the international logistics. What we have seen is that not many organizations are connected beyond the tier one supplier, and if you look at automotive, there are 100 to 1,000 sub-tier suppliers, and even if one of them contributing 2% of the parts is not functioning well, your production can be actually derailed for almost 2 weeks to 3 weeks. And I think that kind of visibility is important in the whole process. But I have somebody very interesting here, Sachin from Gateway Rail, and I will move from Adendu to Sachin in that sense of the term, because Adendu brought about this whole question of, how do you physically use the geography of the country in order to optimize your supply chains. And I think it's very important that if you do not know how the physical geography of your infrastructure operates, you may not be able to really do a great justice of planning in the new normal. The new normal requires a reimagining of the networks. And these networks are very well connected with the physical infrastructure development. So Sachin, what are your views in terms of you operate dry ports, we work with dry ports and others. So what are your views on this?
Thank you, Doctor. Thanks for having me on this distinguished panel and there's a lot to learn, which I'm glad and that's why I'm glad that I'm a part of this. I think, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, I'm glad that I'm a part of this panel where there's a lot to learn. So a couple of points that I would make before I venture into responding to your query. In context of the pandemic that we have seen and resulting into a lot of restrictions on mobility which arose out of it, I think one important point which was touched upon by Adendru quite well is that there is a need to be resilient and disruption prepared, both from capacity as well as solution mix point of view. I think this is a point that all managers who chase efficiency as a single goal, improvement in input to output ratio as well as reducing per unit cost are the two goals which are normally chased by efficiency oriented managers. They probably miss this. And like a person who doesn't have a little bit of fat around its waistline, so that in case of a illness, there is some fat to rely upon. All of us were exposed in not having this resilience, having a contingency plan or having disruption preparedness, both from the point of view of service providers as well as capacity that is necessary for ensuring that our supply chains are uninterrupted. If you look to look at a problem, you have to look at it either from an anecdotal point of view or from a statistical point of view, or sometimes even from a philosophical point of view. So let us start with the anecdotal part of it. So the anecdotal learning in the international business has been that there is a large pipeline of ocean-bound container vessels, which is always there, and it normally has a transit time of anywhere between 30 days to 90 days. So it's a flow which continues to come in. So in import direction, the intermodal sector saw that imports kept on coming up to end of May without any interruption because there was already a pipeline on the ocean. While the exports, which have a very short response time, anywhere between 7 days to 15 days, quickly dried up. And we had a situation wherein we had practically a imports only trade cycle going on, wherein there was a deficit, severe deficit from the export side. We had huge number of imports coming into India and very little exports going out of India. So this resulted into a complete chaotic situation as far as holding of the inventory is concerned, as well as transportation of the inventory is concerned. The next thing which happened is that since the road transportation was not taking place, the intermodal transportation, that is transporting it by rail from the port to the dry ports and delivery of from there from the dry port by road to the warehousing location or manufacturing location, got severely disrupted. These points have been touched upon by other speakers quite well. But it resulted into one thing, that all those dry ports, all those warehouses which had adequate capacity to operate at more than their normal level, they are quickly able to provide a solution to the industry. So just to give you an example, one of our dry ports which operates in Gurgaon has a capacity of at present operating at something around 15,000 to 20,000 containers without any problem, which means with a 10-day cycle time, we don't need to keep more than 6,000, 7,000 containers at any point in time. This inventory had swollen up to a level of 15,000 containers at Gurgaon terminal. And because we had adequate capacity, we were able to take care of the requirement of the customer. So there has to be, from a resilience point of view, there has to be an adequate contingency plan of capacity as well as mix. The mix point has already been covered by, I think, Adendru, that you have to look at solutions from road and rail point of view. I'll just give you an example again from an anecdotal point of view, that one train carrying 2,500 tons, which is roughly 180 containers, is equivalent to 150 trucks on the road. And 150 trucks on the road would mean 300 migrant laborers which have to be deployed for this purpose. While it is necessary that we provide adequate employment, we also need to ensure that more reliable sources of service are available to the industry to choose from. Now to come back to Dr. Singh's question, is that how do we plan from a let's say in a country which has got such a vast expanse. So we are almost a small subcontinent in its own right. So I would look at it from 5 overlays point of view. First is the infrastructure overlay. We have to ensure that all critical manufacturing and consumption locations have adequate infrastructure connected by brick and mortar roadways. It's a work which is an ongoing work which is continuing. The second overlay is the operations overlay, operator overlay, wherein the actual service providers operate service to the industry. The third one is the product or the services overlay. This is the offering of the operator overlay, which creates the market for various products to the customers. Then comes the regulatory overlay. The regulatory overlay primarily is aimed at control and stoppage of abuse and protecting the stakeholders. And the most important component which comes after this is the technology overlay. Transportation and warehousing by itself has existed for a very long period of time. It became logistics only when it got integrated. And the supply chain solution, which is a child of this integration, has been able to take care of the industry to ensure a continuous inflow as well as outflow of raw material, assemblies, and deliveries.
Thank you. I'll come back to you.
Okay, perfect.
I think well brought about the whole intermodal as well as the role of technology and encompassing in the supply chain. I'll just see if Jasjeet is there to give us an overall view of warehousing strategy needed for the future. Jasjeet. All right, I'll move to Kapil. Kapil, you have been operating one of the largest 3PL in the country. You manage IT, I know, but from a very strong perspective, what are the key critical element of logistics and warehousing which needs to be really streamlined in future for Indian corporations to become equally efficient, competitive with their players so that the supply chain costs in the country can come down?
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Good afternoon, everyone. So we do operate a sizable number of warehouses, as you rightly pointed out, and I think though technology is playing a key role in enabling and making these warehouses much more optimal and kind of in line with how warehousing is supposed to operate globally, right? But I think there are still a lot of ground issues that kind of act as an impediment for technology solutions that are designed for global use to kind of be relevant in the Indian market, right? Having said that, to answer your question, I think the modern warehousing basically needs to be designed keeping the following key areas in mind. The first one would be, I would say, improve the material handling efficiency and labor productivity. So that still remains a big issue. Maximizing space utilization and also enabling multi-channel fulfillment, right? So that I think is another area that needs to be looked at. Reduction of inventory cost, which again kind of is really important on how you are building the warehousing efficiency, and and also with some kind of a real-time inventory visibility that becomes kind of paramount. Also increased warehousing accuracy and lowering of the safety stock levels, so that effectively translates into savings for your end customer and making you also making your entire warehousing operation more efficient. Another area I think is around the whole labor productivity, right, which needs to be improved, kind of has to have a tech play in the game with and having said that, what I mean with this is that it has to be system directed activities. There should be full support for material handling units and the elimination of paperwork and manual data entry, which is very prevalent today also in the Indian 3PL logistics sector, right? And I think lastly, I would say that you got to support multi-channel demand and the execution processes so that customers can buy anywhere, fulfill anywhere, and return anywhere, right? So this is probably a very small statement, But
I think very well put, Kapil. I think what really pains supply chain and overall supply chain is sales lost, inventory, and I think this is something that we really need to tackle through the changes that come about, because the world has changed. It has become more curved rather than flat as we thought. And as it becomes more curved, we really need to build in resilience strategy, and resilience strategy which becomes a very essential part of your competitive strategy. I think I'll try one more time with Jasjeet if he's there. Jasjeet, what are your views on building up a more resilient and competitive warehouse of the tomorrow? Let us start with, oh yeah, here he's there. You can see him. Hi, Jasjeet.
Yeah, hi. As Sachin mentioned, it's very educative also to be this session. A lot of learnings we are getting from each other. So, you know, the warehousing piece, I think the word used by Sachin was some amount of fat around the belly, which also required. So warehouses were one area where we had inventory when the plants were shut down. So actually, why things carried on during the pandemic also was because warehouses were stocked for a normal kind of an operation. So we had a scenario where the warehouses started to get depleted in the first 45 days because no plants started operations till about 10th of May. If you recall, even things like Unilever and P&G could not start operations in that period. So warehouses outside these cities, the large DCs, they came to the rescue. But having said that, they need to be operated. So actually, we did not stop our work any single given day. We were operating throughout the pandemic, supplying to the cities, both food items, essential as well, and quite difficult at point in time. At the same time, what also I think has happened is that the network design, what was earlier being looked at from a very lean perspective, has started to change from lean to being more sustainable, being resilient. So I think I completely endorse that point that before the pandemic, people were looking at, you know, the keywords were efficiency, cost optimization, agility. They changed to being sustainable, resilient during the pandemic. And going forward, I feel it's going to be a mix of all these things put together. One more shift has happened, and that is that B2C has become much more prominent in this period. From the B2B scenario, you could see that e-commerce, in fact, we hit a peak higher in June than last year Diwali itself in the warehouses where we are doing for the e-commerce guys. So this, of course, this Durga Puja and Diwali is going to be another high. We have seen a shift happening from the brick and mortar all to the these warehouses of Amazon and the like. In terms of the overall mix, what we are seeing that there's a K kind of a recovery. Some items are going up very well and some have come down. So earlier we knew that things like home automation, maybe a mobile, laptop and stuff like that would be the one in vogue. We also saw a lot of requirement for home appliances like dishwashers, which were never a four in India, suddenly started to be off the shelves, and that became very, very high in demand. There's also spurt last 2-3 months in the demand for automobiles. We operate about 24 yards across the country. So personal mobility has got a very big fill up. A lot of demand has come in for two-wheelers. If you see last month's figures, they are about 15% more than October last year. So there are some segments. It could also be pent-up demand, Dr. Rakesh, on 2 points. One is that maybe because of Euro 4 and Euro 6, people were not buying in the last quarter. Then you had the pandemic coming for the 3 months. So what we are seeing as a resurgence could be very much a pent-up demand as well. And we will know it only after Diwali, where we are in terms of the resurgence, whether really we have, you know, some green shoots available or just a pent-up demand which is being fulfilled. A very interesting point here, which I just want to have my concluding remark, would be that while, you know, it's important to have a good network, digital and stuff, it's actually been the strength of the physical network which has held on. We guys could operate from home, we could, you know, do our networking and stuff, but it was the people on the ground who actually made things happen. So the real networks across the country, the people on the ground, they are actually the real heroes who stood up and delivered. And I think that is where probably we are not giving enough cognizance to them, and we must do that. Thank you.
I think with the first round of roundtable, I have one more person, but I think he is left or he has been out. CV Kumar, sir.
I am very much there. Yeah, very much.
So I think I will end the first round with you and your views on what are the future trends in logistics and supply chain that we really need to take into account. We have got very good discussion now, and I leave it to you. You're the senior most here, so you can also conclude this part of the debate. Then we move into the strategies.
To my mind, the most critical thing, as Jasjit has rightly pointed out and Mr. Bhanshali has pointed out, is the manpower which is required to run our operations. We can talk about high-tech digitalized environment, but the people on the ground runs our business. Be it a warehouse, be it a transport, be it a driver, or be it a picker, packer, any of those people, they are the real heroes, and they are the most critical component as far as we are concerned in terms of making our operations a big success. So when you talk about the three critical factors, to my mind, manpower comes as the first one, absolutely the first one. And how we manage them, what facilities we provide to them, and how we are able to give support to them in terms of being close to the workplace, what kind of facilities that can be provided to them. These are factors which would matter a lot currently as well as going forward. People talked about, Mr. Jain spoke about the need for drivers being handled better, and since CCI Logistics is primarily into transportation, we feel our association and our fraternity call them as the highway heroes. They are the real heroes who move material from one place to another, and they are the people who had gone through all the sufferings moving material from during the pandemic situation. Let us talk about the first phase of lockdown, or rather the unlock first phase, when the essentials were allowed to be moved. We had very limited number of vehicles because the vehicles were available, very limited number of drivers available. Most of them had gone home, some of them managed to go home, but those gentlemen, those people were the real heroes who managed to keep the wheels of transportation and logistics moving. So a big so they need to be appreciated.
Thank you.
Second, as somebody said, yes, we all work in silos, so more integration definitely is the need of the hour. It's there, but then it's still silos being integrated partially, so it's not a seamless movement of information or decision making. So that's one area which we need to be looking at.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Yeah, and I'll move to APR. OPR, you have 1 minute to contribute. I cut you short, but I think you seem very active now.
Yeah, Dr. Singh, could you just give me a cue so I can take it from the...
Again, we have some problem as you're traveling.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, I said, can you give me a cue so that I can take it from the queue?
What are the critical areas that needs to be tackled in future, according to you? 3 critical areas that you need to tackle to make logistics warehousing competitive.
So technology, I think, is quite underrated in our industry. Everyone has their own view about technology, especially the user community. It is used only when your CXO level pressurize you or push you to actually embrace it. Otherwise, it is looked at as a villain, which in fact it is not. Right? So I think very important to embrace and understand that there's massive rigidity around it. In embracing technology, and hence integrating functions have become very difficult. So when I spoke about silos in the first segment, the silos exist here as well in the area of technology. So technology is very critical. It needs to be handled well, it needs to be embraced well, it needs to be pushed well from all directions, not only from the oracles and the blue yonders or the practitioners, but even from the government, even from the consultants, even from academicians, everyone has to push it well. It is not an expense, it is an enabler, it's an enhancer. Second element that is very, very crucial is skilling people. We all talk about it, but I have seen a fair amount of rigidity in any kind of expense to be budgeted around training. And people who don't, and I've seen it over the years, that people or organizations that do not invest in skilling their people are definitely not long-term organizations. But yes, that is an area of
I think
immediate
you already touched three critical areas, and I think one, fragmentation within technology, silos within technologies, that's bringing a lot of pains to organizations. I think the use, this is off the cuff. I was just having a HUL demand planners talking to me on how to use macroeconomic parameter to plan their supply chain. I asked them what is there in their APO, and they all smiled. So I think technology, that black box approach has to move away to more, visibility within that particular process also. And we really need to see that skilling becomes a very important part. I was reading a Harvard Business School article which said that data of supply chain, which talks about actually control towers, and which says that larger skills would be obviously softer skills will stay, emotional intelligence will stay, but what it is important is that critical, analytical, and communication, that becomes a very, very critical skill in the long run. However you define it, according to customize it to your requirement, is very important. We move to the second part of it, and we have seen this huge amount of this thing. I think Sachin and Adhendu brought about very brilliant points about a physical infrastructure of a country needs to be married to your decision of transportation and warehousing. It should be dynamic as it develops. It provides a huge amount of intermodal efficiency and economies of scale. And I think that one element got answered much before that. And thanks to both these gentlemen and also to Mr. Kumar later who said this. But when we come to technology, when we talk about technology, what are the pitfalls and potholes in technology? Let's start with that, because there are so much of potholes and pitfalls in technology. One APR really brought about, and I will put this to Atul. I'll start with Atul and see that in technology, what are the critical areas that we really you mess up with? Though technology is there, we mess up with technology. Someone was talking about sales and operation planning. I think every company has a sales and operation planning. At the end, when the demand comes from an unexpected quarter, they will say, I have a dynamic SNME and create firefighting. All your system goes for a toss. I have seen it, and my colleagues at ISM have seen it very critically with major players, the top companies in the country. So I think this is something that we really need to tackle. So Anand, what are your views on this? Atul, can you hear me?
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. So good afternoon to all. Thanks for giving me this opportunity on this panel. But if you see that technology, we should see from the technology intervention, we should see it from a force multiplier. This can bring a lot of good things to what we want to achieve in our physical part of the logistics. But when our supply chain designers, they design a technology, they do not take into account that what it can cause in terms of disruption. So this is, I don't think this is a fault with the technology. This is a fault with the planning on what could go wrong with the technology, and how do we put a piece of caution into that. And if something happens, that how we are going to keep the things running. There's the most important part which is likely to be integrated, and we should all agree to it, that in our supply chain design, this part should become a part of thinking, that what is the plan B if we are putting a technology and that is not working. So pitfalls in terms of technology. Second is the poor implementation technology. Many times that I have come across, that is many times become a hindrance in the successful implementation of it. The kind of shortcuts we take with the technology, that is also play a havoc with the full implementation of technology. So I would see that most of the technologies, when we adapt to the warehousing and logistic industry per se, that are to be seen from the holistic solution point of view, rather than just put a piece of technology to sell it to the users and they go forward and there is no backup plan. So this is very important part of it. Second thing is that when we compare that technology, the kind of people who are deciding on the technologies to be used, are there the people who are the authorities on deciding that this kind of technology we are going to adapt into our industry? If you take the technology into the storage part of it, there are many technologies available which talk about that which kind of technological solutions are available for the storage utilization, cube utilization, and many more to that. But when we see into it, we do not see their longevity. We do not see the technological livability to that extent where we are looking into the technology. Outfacing of the technology is not considered as one of the things which we consider at that point of time. So these are some of the things which I think when we are adapting technology, we should adapt with a full kind of visibility on the feasibility of technology, on scalability of technology, that if there is any midway, that if technology is to be adapted to the scalable in future, are this technology scalable? Those are some of the points which should be taken into account while adopting any technology into the field of warehousing and physical logistic part of it.
Thank you.
So that
Atul.
is the second part of it. Just I wanted to add one more thing.
Okay.
That IT backbones which are running the technologies, those IT backbones are very essential to be elaborated to a point where the technology life is being considered. So that part is also overlooked, and many times we adopted technology with the IT part of it that is not sustainable in the long run. So those are some of the things we need to take care of.
Very good, Anand. Good perspective. I think with your perspective and APR perspective, we have a CIO among ourselves, Kapil, and Kapil has implemented technology in Safe Express in a brilliant way. And I think, Kapil, what would be your major, transition pain points during making information technology work in the logistics domain, including warehousing?
Yeah, so I think Atul kind of pointed out some very relevant points. And again, just as a background, this so Safe Express has been one of its kind for me from a overall standpoint. It was firstly an Indian, first time working with an Indian company, and then I think logistics. When I entered, there were a lot of things that were done in the traditional way. And again, I'm not going to debate whether it was right or wrong, but I think the mandate that I had was that how do we transform it? How do we use technology wherever we need to use it? Not just pick a piece of technology and try to fit it to solve a problem. So I think, as Atul rightly pointed out, you got to look at technology from a holistic standpoint. The first thing that you got to do when you're creating your digital roadmap or using technology as an enabler is to have a backbone in place. Right? So by that backbone, I would mean probably the connectivity, how your hubs and how your spokes are connected, how your franchisees are connected. Because the moment you make technology indispensable, the backbone, problems will start surfacing out, right? And it will not really, the adoption will go down, and it will really add to the problems rather than solving the problems. So I think the backbone had to be set up is a really important point, like Atul said. The other important area, you got to look at technology holistically, right? So when you look at it, so how do we look at it? The first mile, the middle mile, the last mile, the customer experience side of it, the operation side of it, right? The data side of it. How do you orchestrate all these different silos? As a lot of us talked about silos, right? How do I build a 360-degree view where I could actually drill down and see what is really happening on the ground, where I could really mine the data and get insights out, right? So I think that is easier said than done. And having done that for a lot of Fortune 500 companies like Airbus, Shell, Prudential, DBS, I think that the perennial problem that I saw here was not very different from the global clients or global industries in other domains. You have to look at technology as an enabler today. There's no other way out, right? Look at Amazon today, right? It's a technology company, right? But the core is logistics, right? How it moves the goods around. They brought in concepts like same day delivery, next day delivery, and it's all tech enabled. Without technology, you really can't move things in today's world, right? And talk about startups ecosystem, talk about competitiveness. You're going to lose it all if you're not really there and you're not really using it to your advantage. So I think from that point of view, tech really becomes an enabler. Now, I have always been an adversary of saying that don't buy tech, buy platforms, right? As a lot of the fellow members spoke about, don't, I'm sorry, I think we have we have Bino George as well. But I would say that when you look at technology, whether it's Oracle, IBM, whether it's Salesforce or any other platform out there, look at it from a standpoint that can you really use that technology to stay competitive and agile, right? Because the moment you invest into platforms like an SAP or any other ERP, an Oracle TMS, you got to see whether it's going to be a part or can it really cater to your demands and give you the competitive edge that you would need 5 or 10 years down the road, right? So our technology roadmap in the last 3.5 years that I've been here is about investing in platforms, right? So you get a platform and then you build on it. You build on it to kind of create your own specific use cases that give you competitive edge over others, right? Because if everyone's using SAP, how do you differentiate, right? It's your business models that you're going to differentiate on. It's your product offering that you're going to differentiate on. It's how soon can you get a product to market, probably fail and learn, and then again launch another product, right? So I say that end of the day, you got to be nimble like a startup, but then you got to be scalable and kind of robust like probably a Fortune 500 company that is out there, right? So so from that standpoint, it's really important when you're looking at your digital transformation, look at it from a standpoint that what platforms can we invest in, try to build that capability, a lot of it in-house, because as we rightly spoke about, right, pre-COVID, COVID, the differentiation on you getting up sooner is how soon can you tweak those systems or tailor your business flows to adapt to something that was not really anticipated or no one really planned for it, right? So if all the technology is outsourced, if all the technology is totally out of your control, it becomes very difficult to stay nimble and competitive. So it's got to be a mix of partner ecosystem, platforms, and in-house capability that you got to work on to have a well orchestrated system where you could get enough data and then use that data to kind of mine it and build competitive insights from.
Thank you, Kapil. I think you have brought about a very end-to-end perspective to technology and its relationship with ecosystem, and data is money. I think we'll talk about data as money a little later about alignment, but let me go back to Vinu. Vinu, as you referred, Vinu is from Infor. Infor provides technology for logistics and distribution and supply chain. Vinu, what do you think? Are you have various clients of your own. Without naming them, what do you think should be a good technology strategy? Not the deployment strategy, but the element of that particular strategy for organizations to streamline their logistics function and contribute to the supply chain efficiencies. I'm saying contribute to the supply chain efficiencies.
Thanks,
unmute yourself.
Yeah, I have unmuted. I think I'm audible now, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, right. Thank you, gentlemen. And I want to really say that it's a privilege to be with Dr. Singh and with ISCM to be part of all the business leaders. Some of you are customers, some here in India, some globally, and it's a privilege to hear you for the last 1 hour. Really enjoyed listening to, and also hats off and salute to all your teams who have been keeping my bread and my butter coming home. So I must let you say that. So really appreciate all that.
we are a support function like you're a support function. So technology support is what we give. And coming to Dr. Singh's question, I think, pretty much I'm going to just lean on a few things that many of you have mentioned. And I thanks Mr. Mahajan for setting it up for me, because I think you're very, very right. And I totally agree with the fact. I have 28, 29 years experience in, in the enterprise application space. And warehouse management has been one area that I've had a brush with. And platform is the most important thing. If you buy something that is rigid, you cannot adapt very fast, because you would be stopping the car and changing the wheels quite often, because business environments keep changing. Mr. Jain also mentioned about people, the people piece, fully respected all of the pain that you all went through. But IT can surely, if you have a digital strategy, one of the things that everybody is talking, I don't know if it's a cliche amongst you, is digital transformation. Nothing great, but it's about some of you saying that your papers, you needed your documents digital. Some of you saying that you needed something to be an early warning system than reporting back that you've already failed, delay. There's a delay already happened. So these are things that have been really topics that are coming up. These are things that looking at. And again, I go back to what Mr. Mahajan mentioned about the fact that you need to have a digital roadmap and then go and do it. It is not just because your ERP vendor gives you a solution for warehouse that you put that in place. You look at what is good for your business, look at what is relevant to your business, and look at something that is able to help you do fulfillment by bringing your costs down, manage your dynamic workforce in your warehouses, increase, is adaptable to increasing your integration needs. There is no one application in the market which fulfills all your supply chain needs. So there is a warehouse management specialist software. There is a transportation software. We are working with one of the largest supply chain in the country, service providers in the country, who is trying to build a control tower using all these melee of solutions. Because we need seriously a big enterprise bus which will put data from these different sources, and you are already with your back to a lot of SLAs. So you need to ensure that before they get triggered, you are at least alerted. So this is where the challenge is, Dr. Singh. I would just don't want to be getting into a rant, but I just wanted to touch on a few things, and I think I will get another chance to speak on some of these things. But I just, in the later half, maybe I can talk about a global cloud-based solution and a warehouse-based solution.
We'll come back. Come back.
Yeah, over to you, Doctor.
Jasjeet, any comment on technology that you have? I see you still around, so I thought I'll pull you in.
Yeah, I think the tech piece is essentially more important now. And if you would look at even the networking which we are having now, is more than the CIO or the IT department could have done. COVID has done for us. We have been able to compress travel time, a lot of stuff which we didn't do earlier. What it has changed is that it's changed the habits and perceptions. Earlier, it was not good manners to call on a customer on a webinar or call on him on a VC. You have to be there in person. Now it's better for everyone. So that is one part of communication, and you're able to do things much faster, which would sometimes take weeks on end. So the speed of business has increased. I'm talking about the first piece, which is human-to-human connect. Second, in terms of digital transformation, I think every company is going through its own journey. Everybody has got their own center of excellence where they're working on it. Logistics basically is flow of information as well as of finances, while goods flow in the other direction. So in terms of what we've been able to achieve, I think as a country with the GST, with the e-way bill digitalization and the e-invoice now, is a humongous amount of improvement. It has been pushed down our throat, but today you were able to track almost every consignment through that e-bill system. We are able to generate our own document based on that. From 1st of November, technically all companies which are here above 500 crores have gone to the e-invoicing. So invoices get called onto the central portal. These are improvements which are between a customer and a supplier. Between us and suppliers, that's an area where we should have to work on, because below us, that level is not very organized. So data we may give out would be a very good ERP data. We have APIs, but Down below, it is not there. In terms of overall supply chain visibility, control tower or truck control tower or IT control tower, these words have become pretty commonplace. What we have to probably get through is to see how much can be automated, because our business is now run 24/7. The manning is still quite high. One another important thing which has happened is the API with the GPS service providers. There are more than 40-45 companies in the country who are providing GPS services. I think almost everybody in this room would have API connects with all of them. So technically, what used to be maybe 5 years ago, consignment tracking on the fly was something which was considered to be a rocket science. It's very simple now, because your consignment is linked to a challan, linked to a truck, linked to an API. So you can pretty well track things everywhere. Now, having said all of this, its utilization in terms of network optimization, I think that is still somewhere to go. Is utilization in terms of network redesign, again, that's a gap I think which is there. In terms of analytics and in terms of optimization of the space inside a lorry versus into a train and the linkage with that, I think again that is something which we have to still work on. But by and large, the journey which we are in now, given I think the current speed, next 2 years, we will have much more accomplishments on digital space. And it's been said that India's cost is high. It's just humbug actually, because our cost is about $300 billion and the economy is about 3 trillion, which is a good percentage because we have got high amount of manufacturing and high amount of agriculture. About 40% is that. You can't compare with US, which has only got services there. So, but digitalization will also help us in improving the cost structures as well. This pandemic has also brought to the fore a lot of multimodal. I think the railways has done exceptionally well because they were given the opportunity to move cargo and they gave subsidies as well. Since passenger traffic was not running, almost all the trains have run like on a dedicated freight corridor. We have our trains which reach Chennai to Delhi in about 2.5-3 days, which is unheard of earlier. Of course, passenger traffic will come back and that will not be same as ever. But the linkage between a complement of road and rail has happened far better. Coastal shipping is doing far better on both the coasts. So going forward, Dr. Rakesh, I think in terms of digital and physical network working together, I think India is in for a very good time in the couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasdeep, for that particular very positive and optimistic view. And I think COVID has really fashioned our digitalization. And I think everybody says that those who get digitalized will survive in the future, because I was reading a KPMG report which says that 80% of the companies which had digital acceleration before the COVID did very well during the COVID. But I think the adoption rate of digital technology in a varied way has been amazingly high, and government pushing for it for the logistics player, where transparency, visibility, and speed has made things much better. Firoz, we would like your view on digitalization and also, the major concern that people have in terms of security, that really, which is going away, because as you get more familiar with the digital technology, security issues, you start accepting it. So what are your views on that?
Thank you so much. We typically take a startup approach in whatever we do, though, I mean, compared to last year to this year, we're doing almost, last year BBD, we just over the big billion days now. Last year was about 1 million packets per day. This year, we've done about 2 million packets per day. So that's the kind of change which we keep trying to do. For that purpose, what we do is almost every year, whatever we've built, we take a decision that we will take it down, tear it apart, and do it fresh. So whether it's the warehouses, whether it's the technology piece which we built up, we take it down and build it up once again. Like just to give you an example, about in the last 5 years, what we've done is basically built in isolation the various pieces: the first mile, middle mile, last mile, the trucking, the warehousing, and things like that. So then we started to combine them up and then offer it as a E2E, enterprise to enterprise solution, because everybody wanted uniform SLAs for whether it's a 100 rupees packet or whether it's a truck of 10 crores which is moving and getting delivered. So they wanted to have a transparency or a single portal to be able to see things. So that was when we brought it together. We're again sort of taking it apart and looking at a blockchain concept where we build it apart, all the different modules. So this is something which we keep doing. Now in this process, what happens that the various aspects around security, speed, efficiency is all gets reviewed, and that's what probably gives us the results which we want finally. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ryan, what are your views on technology, both local and global logistics? If you can give us some ideas.
Well, Dr. Rakesh, I mean, possibly give it a slightly different flavor. I'm glad that most of, all my panelists, in fact, have talked about number one being the people, of course, because the people, proper training, proper retention plans. Because, if you keep having a churnout of people, no matter what technology you have in place, you have a problem, right? And we have seen a lot of companies who have got the money power and the spend to get in for a lot of technology, but they have not actually studied the environment in terms of what the customer actually needs. So you have the right people, you have the kind of retention plans, you have the right, maybe the right equipment to deploy that technology. I'm just taking this a little bit further into what my idea of possibly evolving the entire warehousing and supply chain and how we can implement technology. Where I feel very strongly that what are we doing towards the environment? In terms of managing our making sure that it's linked back into our system, so we know in terms of footprint, we know in terms of emissions, we know what's happening there and what we are creating to build a sustainable environment out there. I think as a logistics service provider or any company, that is part of, it's a big part of our responsibility, and how we hook it back into technology. Another very big piece for us, to my mind, is managing you make sure that your warehouse managers actually manage the cash flow and working capital, because they are the guys on ground. They are the guys who are carrying out your operations. They are guys who are making sure that you're billing to the customer. They are making sure that your collections come in on time. So if we have to use technology into every part of our play, whether it's people, whether it's the managing your material handling equipment, whether it is installation of the right kind of ERPs, whether it is proper cash flow management, whether it is health, safety, and environment. If each of these are plugged into your system and you are able to create dashboards, for your internal consumption, and you know where you are, what you are doing, and only then you will understand the gaps. Unless you're properly plugged into the system, you will not understand the gaps. And only when you understand the gaps, you can make changes. This is not only for, let's say, for an internal consumption, but I think many customers out there also, when they see that you are able to kind of track and keep on a continuous process of improvement, and you're making your warehouse a very sustainable operation, that is what you can bring to the table and offer to customers. And I think that is what
No, I
the
think
future should be.
we will run out of time, so I'll stop there with you, and I'll move to Sachin Bhansali for his views on IT in the overall logistics. What needs to be done, because I want Vinu to respond at the end. A lot of issues that are coming up, so maybe a service provider can give a view of how things are happening in the world to tackle these issues, including how do you really secure the labor force, because one element that has come up in a big way is that securing the labor force is becoming a very important aspect of human resource development and places to work for. Why should places to work not be only in the domain of Bombay and Delhi and Kolkata? Why not at the factory? Why not on the roads?
Yeah. Yes, Dr. Singh. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I am not a technology person, so I don't understand technology. So no, I don't know what
I don't want you to technology.
I know. So I don't know. I don't know what is inside. I don't know what is inside this instrument. I I know what comes out of this instrument. So that is the way I would look at technology. Initially, when we started doing, let's say, use of technology in our technology overlay as far as our company is concerned, we basically looked at three things. We came out with the financial suite, we came out with a warehousing and transportation suite, and we came out with an information flow mechanism wherein track and trace was possible. It was possible to pull and push information at the based on either the system pushes information to the customer and the people, workmen who are working, and the customer had the ability to pull information. However, it resulted more into automation of process rather than integration. And that is where we got a little stuck. So we started re-looking at technology from a different perspective. So we took two perspectives for use of technology in an organization, and currently we are undergoing that, let's say, I would say, metamorphosis from an automation outlook to a experience outlook. So the customer has to look at it from the point of view of what he expects. It should be customizable and it should improve his experience in the hands of the customer. I'll just give you a small example. I'm a single parent. I do all the grocery shopping sitting at home. I look at the app and I end up buying on the platform on which it is easiest to order my grocery rather than cheapest form of options which are available. And that is what makes my experience very relevant from the point of view of being hooked to a particular technology platform, which people just now mentioned that you have to invest in that platform. A technology platform which has been customized from a user perspective. So we started looking at it from that perspective. The second thing was ease of use. I still find that a large amount of technology which has been used for process automation has actually complicated our lives very badly. There is a sequence of events through which you have to go through. There is no resilience which is available as far as use by the service provider itself is there. So once a job order is opened, that job order has to go through a predefined 7-stage process in order to reach to a certain particular level, and there is no possibility of circumventing it in a proper manner as a part of the process. So we get sometimes stuck and become, I would say, prisoners of technology rather than trying to extract maximum amount of technology as far as our people is concerned. So the second perspective that we develop is how to make life of our workmen who produce the product or deliver the service on ground easier by way of integrating that technology in their hands. So any information which is available in the system they should be able to pull it down, update it, and pull it back. Whatever is not updated, and it may not be possible to update all the fields for all the transactions at the same time. So it should be possible to do it by way of a reiteration. So this is the second perspective that we gave. The third perspective was, at the end of it, what we were doing is that we were using all this technology and converting it into a heap of papers and keeping it in our office as well as passing it on to our customer, that these are our invoices, these are your delivery challans which have been acknowledged at your end on the basis of which the invoice has been generated. So it also used to result into a huge amount of what Adendru mentioned, physical logistics of information as well as documentation which was required to be done. And we actually reached the stage where the logistics service that we were providing was actually easier to handle than to handle the documentation logistics. And documentation logistics was extremely important from our financial flows point of view. Your invoice has to reach right in time so that the credit period starts, and at the end of the credit period there has to be a mechanism by which we will be able to get our payment. So from that point of view, integrating our systems either directly or by way of API integration into the system of the customer is the third perspective that we took. I hope that with these three perspectives, we should be able to take ourselves, metamorphose ourselves to the next level. As has been prescribed already, we invested in a platform, and I think that is paying off a lot. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Sachin.
I think you are just as tech savvy as Steve Jobs. What you just said was said by Steve Jobs. What he said was to start with the customer experience and then work backward to technology. Don't start with technology and see how to sell it. That's exactly it. I think we are all practitioners here. We start with the customer experience, how to do things, and tech should come in after that. So that's what Steve Jobs said. I didn't say that, and you explained it very well.
I think so, and you don't need to be tech savvy. You need to be, business savvy. So that's where a lot of us miss the point. Technology, if not designed to the need of the business, cannot be successful. APR, do you have anything to say?
I think thanks, Dr. Singh. I think I have been the most critical in every view here, but the idea was to sort of give a wake up call.
It's an open discussion, so you can be.
Yeah. So the idea is to actually give a wake up call. I genuinely feel that most of us need to wake up. A lot of us within the industry need to wake up. We talk well, we articulate well. We just need to start implementing more. Maybe we do so in bits and pieces within our own industries, but the sheer lack of inertia to do it beyond us is what is actually killing the whole process.
I think this is a very important point also. We don't really realize it in terms of technology. What really derails deployment of technology, and I think inertia is one word that really captures that. Now I'll move to Adendu Jain. Adendu, I'm actually mispronouncing him. Adendru Jain, right?
That's perfect.
Okay. So what do you think are the critical areas that needs to be tackled in global logistics and global logistics in terms of technology?
See, from the technology point of view, and specifically when we talk about logistics, I would just take the cue from what Sachin mentioned, that a lot of times what we see is that still, while there are a lot of solutions available, first of all, the challenge is that there is still solutions available which are not end-to-end, which means that customer has to go through multiple platforms for doing their things end-to-end. And also, still these solutions are not that easy that a customer, a layman, can actually find it that simple that they can book an end-to-end shipment at the ease of on a touch point using their mobile phone or something, and be able to move it and see the information and the cargo flow happening that easy. And I think that is one thing where, while a lot of work has happened, it is still complicated. It still keeps depending on which company, how you are working. The processes are not standardized. So I think there is the biggest challenge, and the big thing which can be resolved. And I think technology can be the intervention which can come into the place and make it simple, whereby it would not only stimulate a lot of SME, mid-sized customers, startups to get into the business. Because I have spoken to a lot of people. In fact, a lot of our customers give that feedback that one of the hindrances to the business is that it's just not easy. They find it very complex in terms of moving the cargo, in terms of the documentation around it, in terms of warehousing. So a lot of times they want to be hands off it and want to give it to somebody who can manage it for them. But then that also gets very, kind of siloed, with multiple parts of it being handled by different companies. So I think the biggest thing around this whole thing is that, can we make it simple? And if we can make it simple, then I think it would really stimulate the trade growth and would help simplify the logistics. But that's one piece of it which I find complex. In fact, as a part of the industry, if I have to book something, there is no simple solution available that you can get it done with ease by yourself. As Maersk, if I share, we actually saw a big transition, and we had launched a couple of tools, but we had been finding adoption both internally and externally not that easy. But when we went through this, we actually saw a big adoption of it both internally and externally. But yes, a lot of work still needs to be done to say, can we offer a platform to customer where they can book their business needs end to end at ease of click of a mouse or using their phone.
Thank you, Adendu. Let me move to Basant for the last point in this particular round.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. I believe that technology is the major differentiator, whether we like it or not. But then technology is something which is playing very vital role in the warehousing and distribution industry. And because all of us are from the warehousing industry, and we will acknowledge that all the aspect and all the resources within the warehouse or in distribution channel are touched by the technology. Be it labor planning or forecasting or S&OP planning or maybe inventory planning, space utilization, everything is being done by the WMS, right? So I think it's a time when we have to accept the technology the way it is coming. We are the user, we are not the developer of this technology, but then we can share our inputs with the developer. And as correctly mentioned by Abhendru Jain, that yes, it has to be simple. So what do we mean by simplicity? Simplicity means how simply I can utilize it, and that was the differentiator between the Linux CLI and the graphical user interface, and that's how the Windows, cracked the Linux. Now, so I personally believe that the technology is going to be the major differentiator, and it has to be integrated within the warehouse and within the overall distribution channel. As far as the different business units are concerned, be it sea freight or air freight or ports, terminal, whatever it is. But then the integration between the business unit is a different challenge, whereas the integration within the warehouse and distribution network is a different challenge. So we will have to handle both of them differently. So that's my point here, Dr. Singh.
I think we saw a large amount of commonality in the divergent view that we have had from our fellow discussant in the roundtable. Binu, I have a question for you. As the future state of distribution and logistics is changing, I think the awareness level is very high. Sachin may say he does not understand technology, but his expectations from technology is very well understood. And as Jasdeep said that, the customer is the king for everybody, so business becomes the king in the whole process. One of the major criticisms against the traditional APOs and APS solution provider was that it was more a black box. But in the last few years, due to the digital acceleration of supply chains in manufacturing and retail, it's also paving way for a catching up in technology in terms of distribution and logistics. What do you think is going to be the future state of this particular technology solutions? How can you tackle most of the suggestions and the apprehensions that you've heard, both apprehensions and suggestions from the fellow panelists today?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Singh. And it's been really an interesting discussion with real problems that you guys face on your business end. We have one solution that is cloud-based, which is global and which is across customers talking to suppliers. We call it Infor Nexus. I'm just giving you an idea of these are the kind of solutions that we are deploying with our customers based on listening to what they require. Now, this being a cloud-based, logistics business is still struggling with trying to get cloud-based because cloud allows you to scale volumes, right? Suddenly on Diwali or on a certain period of time, there is a huge volume scalability, and technology doesn't fail you if you're on the cloud. And that's where we are going with all our solutions on the cloud. We started on-premise ourselves, but we are now going to the cloud. So we have a solution called Infor Nexus, which you can look us up. It is one which allows you to do container tracking, shipment tracking, order collaboration, network control, control towers, all of that. And it's a platform where quite a lot of 3PL logistics banks are all there. So this is being used by many of our customers. Some of you may be knowing about this, or some of you should look at it because it's a very powerful tool that's available and been successfully used by a lot of customers for a long time. Then we come to the warehouse piece, which is it's a physical space with 4 walls. And it has got, I don't know if you guys read about yesterday's article by, I don't want to advertise the name of the company, but it's a Delhi-based company which is making indigenous robots, which is going to be used in warehouses. I'll give you the tip. It's a whole bunch of ex-Asian Paints guys who have done it. Brilliant stuff, makes you proud as a country. But these technologies will have to start integrating with this. If you look up YouTube or any of the other channels, you will see bots working around in warehouses, pulling stuff out or putting stuff back. Like we worked in warehouse management with the largest company, logistics company in India. We actually got it integrated with Put2Light, cross sorters, all the advanced material handling equipment within the warehouse. Now we will see the next stage where it will be with robots. Robots will be told where to go and retrieve, where to place things. So flexibility is required, and you need a warehouse management solution that can also scale you to labor management. Some of you mentioned about labor management, labor utilization, looking at mixing, kit wave planning, interleaving of activities for different customers, task management, all this, cross-docking, yard visibility, 3D warehouse. You could sit at your house and actually look at a 3D warehouse and see what is the space availability for the next 5 days or 6 days based on the orders that are pouring in. This is the kind of solutions we are providing, and globally as well as in India for the last around 17-18 years, warehouse management customers have been with us in India. And finally, one thing that you all mentioned, and that is again something that is very, very important. You all spoke about data, but it is all relevant within a context. If you have the data which is 6 months old, it doesn't make sense. So you need an analytics platform which is again designed for the cloud. Again, gentlemen, I'm not, I was also having my own reservations of cloud. I must tell you that, and let me be honest about it. But I'll tell you, I have in the last 5 years had to change my thoughts about cloud. It is an amazing thing. It's like Gmail, right? I don't really need to know what, when, where. I just do Gmail for business, and I get and I pay a subscription. Here is an analytics platform. Please look it up. It's called InforBurst. It does multi database or multi sources of data can be picked up, analyzed. You can forecast all of that on a platform level. So it is used by one of the biggest names that you mentioned, who is using technology to be the next day delivery. These customers are using these platforms to do analytics, and I'm telling you real life stories that our customers are using. I think these are ways, and then we have our ERP, our WMS, our every solution that we are providing, which is now having a workflow platform. It has got a documentation flow, document management. You can scan your documents and see it with every transaction on the right side. So these are kind of things we are adopting and investing heavily into making changes using new technology. So it's been exciting. There are ways we can handle it. I fully respect Mr. Sachin's point that technology can get frustrating too. And we need to find ways to go and do it. And again, another point which is very valid. I come from a technology company, but I'm a process consultant, business process consultant at heart. A process has to drive your technology. Technology cannot drive your process. I hope you understand the difference there. Over to you, Dr. Singh.
Right. I think we will have one question, because most of the questions that have come from the audience are quite repetitive, but one question that's interesting and that may come up in a big way as a challenge to the logistics industry is about COVID-19 vaccination and its logistics and distribution in the country as we see it, because that would be a big challenge to anybody. So anyone who would like to take up that? Rayon was there, but I think he has left.
So can I take this question, Rakesh?
Yeah, please.
So Rakesh, proactively, if you can hear me all, proactively we are working on a network where we are in talks with one of the major pharmaceutical providers who are in collaboration with the Russian manufacturers to bring COVID vaccination into India. So we are looking at the possibility of setting up a big hub to cater to -18-degree storage, and then bringing that vaccine into that format into -18-degree temperature, and then also building a side up equivalent standby chamber, that in case something goes wrong, that there should not be any problem with the vaccine. And through the network design with the major government institutions, we are trying to develop a network design for the distribution of COVID vaccine. And I think this is quite an advanced stage, and probably by the time this vaccine will come into India, many of us will be ready with the network design and the storage facilities to host this vaccine into India. So that is the kind of this is our social responsibility also to enable our fellow citizens to have a safe vaccine and get over this disease and pandemic condition as soon as possible.
All right. Anybody else want to respond?
Yeah. Doctor, can I respond?
Yeah, please.
The
please,
way we are looking at it is because the spread is required. So one is to get a central warehouse, and the way we are looking at it is cold boxes, which are small size cold boxes, which we could keep moving across the 6,000 trucks. We keep charging them at all our warehouses as they move. We can remotely monitor their the temperature and the battery charge of every cold box, so we know which cold box would probably expire and when it needs the next charge. I mean, these cold boxes generally last for almost 36 hours pretty comfortably. So this is the methodology which we are looking for to be able to attain the spread which is required. Because most important is to reach every village, panchayat, taluk, and that sort of. So what is required is not a very big, large truck to reach that panchayat, but a small cold box with the right type of goods which you can unload it and things move on from there. I think India has progressed pretty well, and we will be able to do it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, Ryan.
Yeah, from my standpoint, actually, even Agility is working with a whole lot of researchers across the globe. To tie in with them, we are providing them solutions for faster freight forwarding movement. Into the various parts of the globe. We are going to, we're talking about evacuate containers, where you're making sure that your temperature controlled and all those things are in place. On ground level, use of smart boxes, what Hussein was talking about. So you make sure that the product remains intact. It gets delivered in the desired temperature, and because I'm pretty sure once the vaccine is out, the need for people like us to bring it down to the grassroots level is going to be very high. So we are making a lot of efforts to to tie in all these ends.
Anyone? I'm just keeping the floor open, so you can just come in if you want to answer this question.
On this side, I think when we are talking about this COVID vaccination thing, so it is not a new supply chain which we are going to manage. Because plus polio, if any one of us remember about the plus polio scenario, actually plus polio is also a vaccination which is spread across the India, and through that channel we can also, I think, manage this COVID vaccination of the faster pace if we can replicate the same model on immediate basis. Because that is also the antibodies which we are spreading, and this COVID vaccination is also not a antibacterial or a medicine. This is just an antibody which will be there in the bottles, and within the specific temperature, as Atul has correctly mentioned, that -18 degrees is the temperature where we are supposed to manage it. The only thing is the supply chain network and the delivery of the vaccination at the centers at the right time.
All right. Thank you. I think I will just take some suggestions for technology uses in logistics, if there are any, because we have touched a lot of them. From anyone who had missed a point can come in here. I think, okay, so yeah. Someone said something.
Dr. Singh, I would like to come on that particular point. I think many panelists talked about the technology portion of it. One of the things which I found in many of the platforms and many of the mobile applications which is being touted around as a panacea for digitalization is the lack of UI UX being very comfortable for the end user to use. The technology is designed by extremely smart, talented people and meant for usage for people who are not very comfortable with technology. Be it language, be it the way the information flow or the UI UX should flow. That's something which we need to rethink and redesign. While the backend might be strong, the front end requires a lot more easy to use facilities which need to be looked into. So this is something which is challenge which I face internally in my organization, and I seen that challenge when we are a user of technology in many places.
All right.
Dr.
So,
I
Dr.
just want to add to that. I think so this is a perennial problem, right? That end of the day, you are mired with this set of products, and these products are designed to cater to all kind of audience across the globe, right? And I think that is where it gets complex, right? We talk about WhatsApp, but it's simple. We use it. When Facebook started, it was simple, right? Now, if you go there, you would kind of get lost because things started getting added to that platform. So I think to answer or to kind of address that problem, you got to look at technology, and see how it can be tailored for your requirements. So in the technology world, there is something called design thinking, right? So it's how you design an application, right? So again, a Stanford way of designing applications, you empathize with the user, and it's got its own 5 steps of doing it. So you got to look at that. Probably it's a good design approach to see how do you empathize with the user? How do you make that whole technology piece more usable, right? Can I put a machine learning or an AI engine to kind of take out 4 steps in the process, for example, right? So I'll give you an example here. What we had this problem, and I think most of the gentlemen here would kind of relate to it, is that the proof of delivery, right? You got to take that has to be given to the customer for them to release your payments, right? So how do you capture this? So you could simply give a camera application, it clicks a picture and you are good to go, but it's not that simple, right? So he clicks a picture in all kind of environments. The lights are not right, the person is not trained, the photo could be, what you're capturing, the barcode is not captured, or the comments that a person has written, the SNSD is missing, right? So how do you solve this problem? Now that we had a problem, we got all these documentations digitized immediately, but we could not send it to the customer because someone had to vet those images. So we said, let's make this technology simple. So we built an AI ML engine in-house, which can now actually do an edge detection, could figure out that this is R-weighable, the barcodes are intact, the image is readable, and it compresses and redesigns the image in a way that can be directly sent to the end customer, right? And a user is forced to click again until he gets the right picture. So, and it works offline as well. So we had a challenge. I can very well do it online with all the vision APIs that are available by Google or Amazon. But how do you make it offline? Because India doesn't work online everywhere, right? So how does an application work offline? So it had a lot of problems. But you got to look at that problem in a different way, and not everything will be available in the market. So that's where I said, you got to tailor it depending on your need, and you will end up customizing it a lot of times, right? You talk about warehousing, for example, and I think we were there. Every customer in India has got its own way and processes. There is no standardization. There is no standardization on the boxes, unlike US and Europe. So how do you deal with that? They have got Infor, someone's running LN, someone's running SAP. How do you integrate, right? So every integration is a new ERP implementation in a way. So it's very simple to say, I want to see a 360-degree view across 400 warehousing customers, but to give that technology to them when they are so adamant of not kind of getting onto your platform becomes a very big challenge and a problem, right? So I think there are a lot of technology problems that are there and could be solved by technology only, but you got to look at it in your own way and look at it what fits well in your organization, right? And probably wear a different hat when you're looking at it.
Thank you, Kapil. I think you have brought the discussion to a very conclusive end. And as we reach 5 o'clock, we have to stop here. Few closing comments that really needs to be seen is that we have seen 4 or 5 major disruptions during the pandemic, and during our discussion also. One is securing the workforce with more human approaches, and I think including drivers and their integration into the new logistics strategy of each organization, using technologies to see that they are disciplined, at the same time they're provided the right support in a human way. Now, any technology solution will have to have that across the network. And given that, I thought there's some few digital themes and initiatives that are very important. The very first thing is that we need to look at all these logistics as a part of our information services, as a part of our supply chain control tower. In the future of distribution and logistics, there won't be service provider, I believe. They will be there, but they will get subsumed into the supply chain of all the organization. And hence, digitally enabled cross-border platform, city logistics, same-day deliveries, same 2 hours delivery, as the channel changes are going to be a major part of it. You need to build up your delivery capability, even using the technology like drones, autonomous trucks, 3D printing, crowdsourcing. And as Basant or someone said, that we need to bring circularity and sustainability into your logistics, because if you see the large number of this industrial spaces company that are coming into it, they have to be sustainable. They have to be meeting the requirement of ESG norms so that they can be funded by the investors all across the globe, and ESG is becoming a major norm. And third, shared logistics capability and sharing of physical assets in logistics by different players, and logistics capability by different users. I think it is very important to see that the planning and demand of the final customer number and experience, what is called a demand sensing. Demand sensing is a larger term, not only numbers, but the experience that they want. That is driving the whole supply chain in a very integrated way. Technology which lets logistics and distribution systems sit in it, along with the supply management, risk management, and demand planning, and is a part of a larger integrated business planning, SNOP, where your technology deployment and technology investments can also be justified based on the long horizon planning that you do is important. So with this, I thank all my panelists, friends here, and we thank you so much. So that and I request Jaisal to come and give a vote of thanks. And we thank you, everybody. It has been good learning for me here, and hopefully all of us have learned from each other and made this discussion fruitful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for making it, I think, very interesting session and good spend afternoon with insights from anybody. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here, sparing time and giving us your insights. Thank you very much. I would also like to thank all the attendees for their presence and making it today. And special thanks to our presenting partner Infor for their support. Last but not the least, entire ISCM team for their hard work and making this happen. Thank you everyone. Thank you so much. Have a great day.